Okay, this is a video tutorial series around designing a stereo speaker that is designed to be laser cut at a 3mm MDF. If you look at the model I've got here, this is what we're going to be aiming for. It's a very simple design, but there's a lot of individual parts and there's a lot of skills of Fusion 360 and CAD design involved in this process. So if we look at what we've got here on the screen, you've got an outside curve going all the way around. This is to give it a sort of a nice organic shape, something a little bit different. You might be thinking, how is this going to be laser cut, this part here? Well, by a process of cutting offset lines from one edge most of the way through, then another one coming from the opposite edge most of the way through, we can create a flexible piece of MDF that can suit the whole shape of this and will be nice and easy to attach and glue in. So we'll be looking at that at a later stage. For now, let's look at the rest of the construction. So if I hide that post there, we've got, this is our frame, this is our construction, this is all the parts we need to make, and this is how it all fits together. Now, the front piece you've got here, you've got a nice speaker grill for the sound to get out. This is a stereo speaker, so you've got a left and right channel. One speaker will sit here, one will sit here. This bit of the front here, this is a lot more down to personal aesthetics. This example, I've got some hexagons, and you can see where I've left some gaps for sound to get trapped. We'll talk more about that when we design that part in one of the video tutorials. Inside that, and I'll hide that front piece, you have got an inner ring, and you've also got an inner ring at the back as well. They look the same, but there is some minor differences between them. If we look at the back piece, you've got a hole here for a USB-C port, so you can power this through USB-C. That will go straight into the circuit board, and then you've got the holes here ready for the circuit board to fit through, and mainly so that we can have the switch and the auxiliary jack poking out through there. Inside, I'll hide the back piece, you've got a main supporting structure here. This is going to hold the circuit board on top of it, and then you've got some dividers that give it the skeletal structure around it. And now you can see the difference between the front and the back. The back has got holes for the dividers and for the circuit board and for the central divider. The front has the holes for the dividers. The central divider, no holes for the circuit board because they're not needed there. But it does have these holes here going around. And on this side they're chamfered, which means that we can fit a chamfered machine screw into that. So a countersunk machine screw can go in there, and that can sit flush with that surface there, allowing us to attach these parts here, these speaker retaining rings. These will go on, so the machine screw will go through, a nut will go on the end of it, and that will hold the speaker inside this gap here. So the speaker is going to sit in here, and this retaining ring, as you can see, it's slightly smaller than this circle here for the speaker, so it's going to trap the speaker in there. It's a much more elegant solution and much easier to undo if there's any problems than hot glue or anything crude like that. So we're looking at also, you know, good design and design for disassembly rather than gluing stuff together and hoping for the best. So this is what we're going to be designing. These are all the individual parts, and this is what it's going to look like. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to design the front and back pieces. So I'm going to go into my stereo speaker folder here. You can see I've got different versions of this. It's evolved as I've been designing it. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder stereo speaker. And in that folder, I'm now going to work. So I'm going to make my first piece. My first piece is going to be the back or the front. They're going to be very, very similar. And I'm going to start off on a new sketch on the front plane. And I'm going to start off with a center line. So with my line tool here, shortcut L, I'm going to activate center line. I'm just going to have a center line, and it doesn't matter on the actual size of it, running straight through there. That center line is going to make things a little bit easier for me because I can fix that in place. I'm going to deselect center line, escape to exit the tool. I'm going to right click on that center line and I'm going to do fix unfix. So I now know everything is about that center point. I can now start drawing my main parts. So I'm going to use my circle tool, shortcut C, and I'm going to draw a circle here, a diameter of 100 millimeters. And I'll draw another circle over here, diameter 100 millimeters. I'm now going to dimension them. So my dimension tool is up here, or shortcut D, and I'm going to dimension each of them 80 millimeters apart. And one's moved, one hasn't, and we've got a nice overlap here, the Venn diagram. That's what we wanted. The left one, I'm now going to dimension to the center line, and you see it's actually showing the total distance either side. So for this to be centralized, I still want to put 80. And you can see they're now centralized in the middle there, and I've got a nice Venn diagram. So we've got that part. We now need to add some curves, because you saw I had some nice curves going on in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my line tool, and I'm going to use construction lines. Now I'm going to draw a construction line down here, and I think I might extend that one out a little bit over there, just a little bit longer. That'll make sense why later on. And I might do one up the top as well. Oh no, line tool, sorry. Make sure you got the right tool selected. Drawn an extra line by mistake, I can just delete that bit. Come off of construction, and now with my dimension tool, shortcut D, or it's the tool up there, to the center point, the central coordinate system, and we're going to use this central coordinate point a lot. Distance of 65. And same with the bottom one. Now, with my circle tool again, on that intersection point, so where the construction line and the center line are meeting and intersecting, I've got a little node marker. I can click there, and if I bring my circle tool out, you can see, I'll zoom in, there's a little circle with a line underneath its symbol. This indicates that we're going to be tangential. So now you can see that's not quite right. You can see that on one side it matches, the other side doesn't. The reason for that is if I zoom in, you can see that I'm not actually on that center line there, and that's causing a problem. So I'll try that again with my circle tool, but this time on the center point here, and I've got the rectangular box with the X marked. So minor details make a huge difference, and there we go. I've got that circle with a line underneath it. That means it's a tangential arc, so it's meeting at the same point on both sides, and it's curving nicely. And there we go. I'm going to do the same thing up here. Check for the right position. Now it's got a center mark on it. Hopefully it's right. And there we go. That's right. And you can see it's created all the profiles there for me, so I know that I've done that right. Okay. There's a lot going on here. It looks very crazy and nothing like what I was showing you earlier. So let's remove some bits that we don't need. We can go to the trim tool, shortcut T, and we can start to remove some of these unnecessary parts up here and down here. We don't need these. These can go. And it leaves us with the overlaps in the middle, or we can take out all the stuff on the inside. And that is the shape we were looking for. So we've got our double circle shape, nice curve top and bottom in the middle. We now need to add the legs, and the legs are going to be the part that the whole thing stands on, front and back. So to do that, I need another construction line. And this time I'm going to have my construction line coming from here straight down. And I'm also going to put a construction line in the middle. like that. Now, with my line tool, I'm going to deactivate construction line. I want to go from the center of here to there, where those two construction lines meet. I now want to use the offset tool, select this line, and with a distance of 12, I'm just going to create an echo of that line over there, and there we go. I can go back to my line tool and bring it across. I can join it all up, and I've now got my profile. With my trim tool up here, shortcut T, I can remove the excesses. These aren't needed. And I can even remove that part there. Make one solid profile. Lastly, I can add some rounding, because these are quite sharp, these corners. We don't want anyone getting hurt. Don't want anyone getting poked by it. So I'm going to use the fillet tool. There isn't a shortcut for this one by default. And if you click on the node of the corner, you can see that it will give you a nice round. Well, I can't click on the node here because you've got so many overlapping lines, it won't automatically detect one. So I'll make this one 2.5. And then I'll come in again with the fillet tool, and I'll manually do this one by clicking that line and make it 2.5. And there we have a nice rounded edge. Now we've got one side done. I could draw all this again, or instead I could use the mirror tool, and I can select each of these lines. Now, I don't want all of that line, I just want the one there. And this can sometimes be a problem. So what I'll do, I won't select that. I could delete this line now, I don't actually need it, but I'm not going to. I won't select that. I'll go and draw that one in manually. So you can see that it's automatically selecting my center line for my mirror. So I didn't even need to draw that construction line there, that was unnecessary. The center line I've got is doing the mirror for me. It's automatically selected it here. If it hadn't done so, you can go on here, I'll deselect it, and you can select your center line or your construction line. And you can see, and I've got a nice preview here. So I'll press OK. I can now take my line tool and just join up that part to that part. And now the profile becomes solid. And finally, with my trim tool, I can get rid of that part there. And we have the shape we need for our front and back. I can finish my sketch, and I'm now going to extrude. So I'm going to click on these two profiles. It has to be two because the center line actually does divide them. So I've got my two profiles there, a distance of 3. Press OK. And that is going to be the basis for the front and for the back. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. And this is going to be back. And I've got the back piece appearing up here. And now I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy. And just copy. And we've got a new one. But I'm going to rename the copy front. So we've got the front and the back. And we're going to leave them alone for now. We'll come back onto them later on, because we're going to use this same process to make the inner rings. Now the inner rings are front and back very similar, though they have some nuances that we looked at earlier. But I can use what we've already done without having to redraw it all again. So I'm going to copy this again. But on the new one, I'm going to rename it front inner ring. And that's what I want to open up. So now that's open, I'm going to close the back. We don't need the back open. And I've got my front inner ring. So let's go in and edit that original sketch on the front inner ring. This all looks really good, but we don't need these legs. So let's trim these legs away. I'm using the trim tool, which is up here, shortcut T. The same here, just get rid of these bits. Now, I've got these gaps, and that's not very good. However, there is a tool called Extend. And if I click on this line here, you can see that it's offering to extend it up to the nearest point following the same arc or curve. And it's recompleting my shape. So it's taking me back a few steps, but that's exactly where I wanted it to be. So we've got this, the inner rings, and if we have a look at our assembly here, are slightly smaller. This is so that the 3mm MDF that's going to bend around can fit in and sit flush with the outside edge there. So to achieve that, we're going to use that offset tool again. And we want this curve, and we can flip the direction and change this to -3. Press OK. And now we can actually remove all this on the outside, or we could just leave it there. What we're going to do initially, we're going to add one more bit in before we come in and start changing some more stuff. So we're going to add in the holes here, front and back. So these are going to be 65mm and the same center point. That means that they're going to be what we call concentric. Have the same center point and they start and end here. So regardless of diameter, in the center they're identical, and therefore they'll reach out and overlap each other without being what we refer to as eccentric, where they have different centers. So 65mm diameter. And now I'm going to exit my sketch, and you're going to see that nothing has changed. Because this extrude here, this was based on the original shape, which is still there. So if I edit the feature by right clicking, edit the feature, you can see that all of those profiles are selected. Or we can get rid of them if we want to, or we can just deselect them. And because we've got our center line there, we've got it on both halves. So I can deselect these bits here, and that gives us our new shape, and I can deselect these new bits here. And now we've got that. Now that's a nice stage to save our work. Never miss an opportunity to save your work. Now, don't be afraid when you see this version number here keep increasing every time you save it. It doesn't matter if you're on version 1 or version 101. This just means that you've saved your work lots, the higher the number. It doesn't make a difference to your work at all. And what you can do is you can actually go back and you can reactivate old versions. So the more saves you've got, the more opportunities you've got to go back to reactivate an older version if you do make a mistake. So now we need to add a few more details in, and we can go back and edit the original sketch just like we just done, or we can do a new sketch, and I'm going to show you how to do this on a new sketch. So I'm going to right click on the surface and create sketch. So we're going to do a whole new sketch on here, and what we need, we're going to start off with our center line. So our line and our center line, and just so we've got that, and then escape to clear. Right click on that line, fix unfix. The fix unfix function stops this moving. I can click it and I try and drag and nothing's happening. So this is a fixed point within our sketch. We know exactly where this is. It allows us to dimension from it at all times, so we get absolute accurate locations, and everything's exactly where we need it to be. So the first thing we're going to add in is holes for those dividers. And if we have a look on the original one again, you've got your central divider going through the middle and attaches to both sides. So that's what we're going to go with first. So to do this, we are going to have the central divider here, just to the left of the center. So I'm going to use my rectangle tool, and there I want a width of 3 and a height of 20. Now I've typed 3. To get to that other box, you press the tab tool and you can just type away. And this automatically dimensions it for you. It locks it in. Done. I'm going to do the same thing again down here. Width of 3, tab 20. There we go. And now I need to dimension their height from the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw another center line from side to side in the center exactly, just so I've got an extra center line. And I'm going to dimension from here up to here. And that should be 5. And that, see how the rectangle got pulled down, not the center line. The reason for that is the center line is anchored to the center point of that arc there and the center point of that arc. So the center line can't move, it's fixed based on other geometries. I'm going to do the same thing here to here. And, oh, now I've made a mistake. I've pressed 5 because that's the distance I wanted, but because it's a center line and not a construction line, that gives me a diameter. So I actually want 10 as my diameter, and I'm going to double click on the 5 and change that to 10. You want a distance of 5, but this is a diameter of 10 because the center line automatically assumes diameter. So that's in there. Now these holes are going to be in the same location front and back. That's fine. We now need the divider holes to go around the outside here. So to do that, we are going to need a construction line in the center of our circle. And you can see that little circle symbol that's appeared there in light blue. That means we're in the center of the circle and we're going straight up. I'm going to go up all the way to there. We're now going to want the circle tool, but keep the construction option active. And from the same point, we're going to come out, and I'm not going to snap it to any points. I could snap it to the middle point there, but I'm going to bring it off of that because I want the distance to be I want this to be a radius of 40, so a diameter of 80. Now I want to draw my rectangles here. Now these are actually going to be squares, not rectangles, and they're designed for the 3x3 tenons that are going to fit into these mortise holes. Instead of going for the rectangle tool, I'm going to press create, go to rectangle, and you see there's different options here, and I want center rectangle. And that means I start with the center point, that intersection here between the vertical line and the circle, and then I can just type 3, tab on the keyboard, 3, and I've got that. But I'm going to cancel that because, I'm not going to press, I've still got construction activated. Deactivate construction, because we want to use this as geometries. Press enter, and I've got that there. So you can see that construction is deactivated now. Always double check that. Now I could draw this again and again, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use a pattern to get that into the exact locations I want, and then I'm going to mirror it. So I'm going to start off with create circular pattern, and I'm going to select the objects. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Center point. Here is my center point. Now we don't want a full distribution, we want a partial around 180 degrees. That's good. And we want a total quantity of 3. 1, 2, 3. And my preview looks good. What can happen is the direction could go the wrong way around, in which case you can manually adjust this, or you can change that to a minus if you want, and you can see it's gone to the other side. I don't want it minus, this is correct this time around, so I can press OK. I can now mirror all of that by going to my mirror tool, and I can select my objects. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pan, by the way, is middle mouse click and move the mouse. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And now my mirror line, because I've got more than one center line this time, it hasn't automatically picked up which one because it doesn't know which one I'm looking at. So select that one there. They're previewed over here. They look right. Happy days. I can press OK. I can now finish my sketch, go to my extrude tool, and I can go and select all of these profiles. You notice the ones that cross over the center line have been divided in two. And then I'm going to select these two profiles here as well. And then by spinning around, I'm just going to cut through. Now, it doesn't matter if I go 3mm or 30mm, I'm still cutting away the material same as ever. There's nothing over here to cut, so it doesn't matter. So they're going to cut through, and that is going to be the same on the front inner ring and the front outer ring. So I'm going to save this, an important point to save. And now that's saved, I'm going to right click on this and copy it and rename that new one back inner ring. Okay, we've made the start on our first 4 parts here. In the next video, we're going to go in and we're going to add the specific individual details to the front and the back inner rings. And then we're going to go in and add any other details we need for the front and the back before we start making the rest of the parts. Okay, good luck.